Here we are. Undertale. Without a doubt, the most popular indie title of 2015. Hell, probably one of the most popular games, period, of that time. And friends, family, people on social media, they just went on and on about this game, how some were claiming it was one of the best things they ever experienced, while others were like, oh, okay, bring it down a notch. Can we talk about something else for a change? And admittedly, I got caught up in a bit of the hype during this past Momocon, actually, where I took pictures of a few cosplayers here and there, and I even got this drawing from FreeZX, link in the description below. But why did I do that? I didn't even play the game yet, but I was going to finally for this video. Remarkably, until I knew I was getting ready for this review, I was able to mostly steer clear from all the Undertale hype beginning from its launch in September. I had friends who respected my personal boundaries, and I had a bunch of fans who legitimately wondered if I played the game, and when I said no, they left it at that, so thank you guys. I knew very little about this game, barring a few characters, but even then, I didn't know of the context, so it still ended up working out for me. Now, why have I been avoiding Undertale all this time? It's not because it's this fucking game, these fucking people, they won't leave me alone. No. Honestly, I've just been busy playing a lot of other things, and when I'm not writing reviews for this channel or doing a podcast or something of the like, I'm practicing Let's Play over at SGB, could be preparing for a commentary on Brain Scratch Comms, and lately all of my free time has been on Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn and Heavensward, and I don't plan on stopping that anytime soon, so yeah, I've been busy. But here we are. Now I'm going to see what Undertale is all about, and I can already sense it with a couple of you guys. I know I spoil shit, it's what I do. My videos are not just whether I can recommend a game or not, but I also reflect on what I've played, and yeah, that requires me spoiling stuff to actually talk about it. For Undertale though, here's what I'll do. If you're watching this video now and you have any plans on getting this game, whether because it was gifted to you, getting on sale on Steam, or you're just legitimately curious, stop watching this video now. Undertale, you gotta go blind. No influence from anyone. I know the irony in that, by telling you you shouldn't be influenced by anyone, I myself am influencing you to play this game a certain way, but to me, it's just the best way to get the most out of it. You play it, and then you discuss with fellow Undertale players about what you liked about this or what you didn't like about this. There's not much I can say for potential buyers without spoiling something here and there to remove some of that magic, the quality that Undertale has when you don't know what you're getting yourself into. If you want my thoughts really quickly without spoiling anything, I think Undertale is worth the price of admission, bearing a few issues with gameplay and structure that makes repeat visits a little cumbersome. Depending on playstyle, it can pull you in, or it can drive you away, but not for reasons you may think. But that's where I have to stop with all the non-spoilery stuff, because I really can't talk about this game without getting deep into it. So if you still have plans on playing this, go now. It's $10 on Steam. Go for it. Play the game, come back here, see what I think about this and that, because that's most likely what you're at this channel for, and I'm deeply appreciative of that. But for all those that are here now and wish to stay, let's get into it. This is Undertale by Toby Fox. Didn't find much on game creation with Mr. Fox here. I think Undertale is his first full-blown video game, not counting an Earthbound Halloween ROM hack. Toby Fox is primarily a self-taught musician, plenty of experience too from what I've researched. Much like one of his inspirations, Shigesato Itoi, you see this guy and you probably wouldn't think game designer. Nevertheless, Undertale, released in September of 2015, while we're taking into a world where some time ago humans and monsters lived in prosperity, you can probably see where this is going. Later down the road, the two species waged a great war, and with humans claiming victory and sealing the monsters deep underground with a magic barrier. Far into the future, a small human child has somehow managed to fall deep into their territory, and this is where we come in. We take control of this kid in a bid to get the child back home, and you may notice that I'm using gender-neutral connotations to describe the kid. It's because it's really up for you to decide. All that really matters is that the kid's human. But for monsters that seemingly had a fallout with humankind, what the kid runs into isn't all bad, all things considered. Sure, your encounter with Flowey the Flower isn't at all pleasant, but you shortly run into a female monster named Toriel that helps you out, and she's more than happy to escort the child back to her home for the time being. Even then, random monsters you encounter are pretty lax and can be persuaded to leave you alone, as if you're turning down another agent of Greenpeace. Although Toriel is very reluctant to let you go into the unknown all by yourself, she can be convinced, for better or worse, to let the kid do what feels right. Afterwards, the kid begins their journey journey to get back to the surface. Reminds me a lot of Cave Story in that regard. A one-person quest to explore the surroundings, never really knowing what to expect given how we're just thrown into this whole thing. But Undertale is no way in hell about the destination, because if we're looking at it that way, that's bare as fuck. You got this kid, you look for your way back to the surface, and soon you do so in about 6 or 7 hours. Yeah, Undertale isn't a very long adventure. This is one of those games where it's about what you do in those 6 or 7 hours. It's about the people you meet and whatever occurs as a result from interacting with these guys. Undertale is tremendously character driven, and exploring and getting to know these people also leads us to discovering more about the world of Undertale. So it's like a 2-for-1 deal. You got character arcs that attributes to world building all in a single package. It's cool. The kid represents you as you go along this quest. Your thoughts are their thoughts, and they never speak. And let me be clear on something. I don't mind when I'm in control of a silent protagonist. I love Chrono Trigger. I love Super Mario RPG, the Paper Mario series. As long as the world I'm in, everyone inside it picks up the slack, I could be a literal cardboard box and not give two shits about it. And in Undertale, your presence as the kid makes up only a small percentage of significance, assuming you're not deliberately putting yourself in the center spotlight, which I'll get into later. This isn't so much an adventure around a kid getting back home, but rather a study on the inhabitants living underground and how your choices as the player, I'm talking you, not so much the kid, affects them. This is what I think Undertale is really about. I can't recall the last time I played a game as meta as Undertale. It uses topics that are normally only discussed in message forms as one of the driving forces for this narrative. Player morality, the very concept of manipulating time and space in your favor, or safe scumming to simplify it, the consequences of your actions or inaction, though I admit that I think Undertale gets a little pompous with that last one. This game wants you to stop and think about what you're actually doing here, and in that fashion, interpreting the meaning behind it all can be engaging, if a little irritating. Again, I'll get to that. But I also don't think Undertale is strictly philosophy 101 the whole ride, because like I said earlier, it's very character driven, and those people you meet up make up a huge part of this game. Toriel, your temporary mother figure, the two skeleton brothers, Sans and Papyrus, the captain of the Royal Guard, Undyne, the royal scientist Alphys, and her robotic creation Metaton, the king of monsters Asgore, and Flowey the Flower. Each of these folks are there to treat you with much appreciated story arcs that drive you to continue on, either because they're entertaining in some fashion, it could be their personalities or their motivation, or because you're very much interested to see what happens next. In between these arcs are a couple of areas of interest with non-playable characters giving you the 2 cents on what's going on, and there's also some other forms of kooky encounters, and I think Undertale manages to bring humorous writing and memorable tics without being over-reliant on surrealism or comedy that just screams, "Whoa, isn't this so random, guys?" Although these Temmies here are totally guilty of that, except Bob here, you see? Told you there was always room for a Bob. Though not as prevalent, interesting encounters also extends to the actual gameplay. I'm talking the monsters you may randomly encounter. Alright, let's talk about core mechanics here for a second. You can deal with encounters one of 3 ways. You can run away if you don't feel like dealing with them. You can straight up kill them like you traditionally would in an RPG, earning you EXP and money and increase your level while doing so. Or you can spare them and leave them alone. However, sparing a monster requires you getting to know that particular monster. By using the act command and observing their reactions, you can try and get on that monster's good side, and when all said and done, you can show them mercy, get a move on with yourself. No one dies, you're no longer in danger, and you have a story to tell, I think. The process of showing a monster mercy is ironically dangerous, because you'll need to defend yourself a few times before you get it right, and that involves guiding your heart icon, representing your soul, past enemy attack. You can avoid damage entirely if you can get the read on your opponent's movements and dodge whatever they throw at you. Threat levels vary from monster to monster, but it can get super hectic at times, going from a simple game of dodging stray projectiles to holy fuck, when did this suddenly become a shoot 'em up from hell? It's unusual, and if I didn't already have a previous background in playing space shooters of all varieties, I can see where I would struggle if I didn't, and hell, I still struggled at times. So, it goes without saying, if you're not a fan of that type of gameplay style, defending yourself in Undertale won't be a pleasant time, and you have to do it a lot. But getting to know these creatures and showing them mercy is also the most you're going to get out of this battle system, and personally what I think to be the better option mechanically and narratively. What you learn from these creatures is small, sure, but totally it's a factor I believe contributes to world building and Undertale's allure. On the flip side, going mano-y-mano against these guys, whether they're regular monsters or boss fights, is the very definition of bland. Alright, let's talk morality now. You know all that praise it did about how Undertale is full of interesting people to learn about, complete with their own tales to share, and the cool ways the game deconstructs traditional RPG tropes? That mostly applies if you're going for what this game classifies as a pacifist ending. Undertale has multiple endings, determined by the choices you make in battle and outside in the field. Unless I misinterpreted something, you are heavily encouraged to spare the enemy. Doing so, in addition to checking on other people every once in a while, will eventually lead you to befriending just about everyone, and I mean everyone. This is also the only way I think you're going to flesh this world out. There are other ways to progress through this game. If you really wanted to, you could straight up kill everything and everyone. Just choose the fight command, time your button press just right, and sayonara. That's about it. And that's really about it. No magic spells, no PSI abilities. Just a simple fight command is all you need. Unsurprisingly, Undertale makes it very clear that killing everything is a bad idea. To quote Sans, you're gonna have a bad time. But while I think the game only meant that in an ethical way, I also look at that quite literally. If you go down the path of genocide, you're gonna have a bad time. Because it's boring as shit. The no mercy ending, the bad ending, depending on your outlook of things, requires you kill every major character in addition to exhausting this encounter rate. How do you do that? You run in circles, killing random encounters until random encounters decide to stop showing up, signify when nobody shows up. It is spooky, and if Undertale knows how to do something incredibly well, it's creating an unsettling ambience when you become an unflinching sentinel whose mission is to make everyone miserable, or dead. Really, no matter what path you choose, Undertale can get damn unsettling and uber surreal, and not in the funny sort of haha surreal, but what exactly am I fucking looking at sort of surreal. But this right here, this isn't surreal, it's not intimidating, it's boring. It bears repeating. Walking in circles, waiting for enemies to show up, which takes longer the more enemies you kill, so it's also playing the numbers game rather realistically. There's barely anyone to interact with, barely any puzzles to solve, very little story. This is the fucking worst, and I know that's the whole point of it. You want to be a bastard? You don't get to enjoy it. You don't deserve any satisfaction. Killing is wrong. How dare you try to fully complete this game? We're going to give you the hardest encounters of this game because fuck you. EXP and LV don't actually mean experience and levels, but rather execution points and level of violence, you fucking prick. I get it. Thematically and aesthetically, it's fantastic, but it's here where I think Undertale gets a little full of itself because it not only hammers in how much of a dick you are by fighting and killing everything repeatedly, but if you go through with it, finish everyone off and end the game like that, it makes it impossible for you to get the good ending ever again in subsequent playthroughs. No shit, it's impossible for you to get the best ending even if you reset your progress. Your copy of Undertale is tainted forever, unless you know how to fuck with the configuration files. All this because I wanted to see what else the game had to offer, and the game attempts to guilt trip me for doing so, instead of just letting the utter lack of activity and stench of death speak for itself. Some may call that a brilliant deconstruction. I think that's just a wee bit patronizing. I mean, fuck me for wanting to see what else the game had to offer, right? You're welcome for the $10, by the way. Okay, my copy was graciously donated to me by a fan, but I'm still a little irritated by how heavy-handed this particular deconstruction comes across. I don't think gameplay should have to suffer for the sake of emphasizing a message. I mean, that's certainly a way to do things, and I appreciate the idea. I know people who won't even consider doing a no mercy run because they refuse to hurt these characters they've grown to love in earlier run-throughs. It's just the execution feels off. I think whether you're showing mercy or killing things outright, gameplay and exploration on both ends should be equally fulfilling. Not as a driving force for the story, but as a game. If I want to destroy precious lives and relationships, I shouldn't have to be stuck with this for about 6 hours. I know what I'm doing here is morally reprehensible, but that's my choice. And it's a video game, a realm I used to temporarily escape from the hardships of reality. This just makes me want to turn the game off because of how dull it is. And I'm aware, I realize I'm coming off as like a huge virtual sociopath when I'm thinking stuff like that. That people that run genocide routes should have as much fun and interactivity as people doing pacifist runs. But it honestly, the thought just kept lingering in my head when I was doing my particular route. It's really easier for me to have stray thoughts like that because, genocide, you're doing nothing but running in circles for God knows how long until you move on to the next area. But it is funny. For as much as I'm ranting about it, I realize it's ultimately not the gameplay you experience Undertale for, unless you go full psychopath, in which there's nothing to experience, I think. You boot up Undertale for the world you travel in. Using the child as your vessel, I'm sorry, that sounded a bit demonic, using the child as your connection between the player and the story, you embark on a journey that's filled with whimsical characters, complete with interaction and moments that leave you lasting memories. It is heavily subjective, and I apologize for pointing out the painfully obvious. If you recall, I classified Earthbound as a game that didn't have a very strong overall plot, much like this game. It had protagonists that were merely supposed to be extensions of the player, like in this game, and it's filled with a lot of quirky moments and humor, like this game. It's just, I find Undertale's brand of humor, deconstruction, and storytelling to be how do I put it, closer to home for me, especially as an internet junkie. It also has a Final Fantasy VI reference in there, and I love Final Fantasy VI. Alright, I'm not that shallow, I think. During the neutral and pacifist runs, I was smiling the whole way through. I genuinely enjoyed the folks I came across. I enjoyed how their arcs concluded. I enjoyed the meta-as-shit writing and comedy. I think it's pretty damn clever with how it deconstructs standard video game tropes, with the whole killing is bad and you're not above consequences message is the only few where I think it has its head slightly up its ass with. The graphics are a bit simple, but effective enough to convey what's happening on the screen. Musically, it's great. Downloaded the soundtrack the minute I finished the third playthrough. It took a bit to sink in, but it eventually caught on, and it's about the only thing I can praise when going on the Genocide path when it's not replaced with distorted noise. As one of those clearly artistic games where it's more about the messages and themes it conveys rather than what you actually do with a controller or keyboard, I can see myself going back to this one, and if I'm doing so, it's either a neutral or pacifist run. Not so much because it's the right thing to do, but rather it's the most interesting thing to do, and I love it when a game can grab my attention without having to get mechanically involved. I'm not saying a game should ever sacrifice fun and immersive gameplay for the sake of telling a story. If that's the case, write a fucking book or a graphic novel, but avoiding projectiles and discovering the means to show mercy to monsters is engaging enough between all the silly moments in Undertale. It's good enough, though I admit, if the gameplay were a little more exciting, I'd say Undertale would be one of the best artistic games I ever played. Still, it's good enough, and I believe Undertale to be a great experience regardless. Won't stop the comment section from being a war zone, most likely, and well, fuck, that didn't take long. Hey, if Toby Fox feels he can judge me on how I play, I can judge you guys on how you just killed my screen. Well, if you're still not sure about Undertale, just go try it out. You got nothing to lose but about 6 hours of your time and $10 from your wallet. I, on the other hand, am preparing for the next marathon, which you guys should already know, is Star Fox. But before doing so, I want to get a couple of individual reviews out of the way first. I know you Star Fox fans have already waited long enough. I just need some time away from marathons for just a little bit. I can't see shit out here. Alright, the Star Fox Marathon is scheduled to begin in July. I hope you guys look forward to what I have in store in the meantime. Whoa! Okay, let me just turn around the other way. Alright, back to darkness. Okay, with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic... Fuck me. Okay, you guys better just scroll down, turn the volume down, just close the tab. Oh, fuck me!